Hello and welcome to this episode of Bloke on the Range concerning gallery loads. Now, for those who aren't familiar with what they are, typically they're drastically downloaded service cartridges which were used for short range, indoor or facilities that were for some reason unsuitable for full bore cartridges. And they're still popular today for that reason, particularly. If you only have access to 50 or 25 meters, frankly, what's the point of shooting ball ammo? And there's plenty of recipes online that will give you possibilities of doing that. Typically, like this 303 version, you have a very light pistol bullet and really a pinch of fast pistol powder in there. Now, the danger with these is if you're not paying attention when you're reloading, you can double, triple, quadruple charge the case with disastrous consequences, obviously. And there's also some talk about having the powder sufficiently close to the primer when you've got a large case capacity. So there's all sorts of fillers and all that. Everyone's got their own theories. But Bloke on a Range being what it is, we of course delved into the history books and we found a clever solution. Even, interestingly, a solution that involved magic, no less. No, not that kind of magic. Well, this kind of magic. This is the French 1895 8mm Lebel gallery round. And it's solely powered by nitrocellulose, or what we now call flashpaper, mostly used by magicians. Let's take a look inside. So here it is close up. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Basically, it's just a sheet of folded or rolled up nitrocellulose topped with a ball. Now, the first pattern of this had a copper washed ball, which had a 8.2 millimeter diameter, and then they changed to just a solid, plain standard lead ball of 8.45 millimeters. What I'm using here is simply 00 buck, which comes out as, it's 0.330 inch or 8.38 millimeter, and it works just fine. So you can find a buckshot mold and cast millions of these in short order. Now, the literature I've seen on these always said that these were produced at troop level. And I'd always imagined that since it's just three components, I imagine the soldiers sitting around a table and just doing it in shifts. It turns out actually that it was far more organized than that. A very helpful person sent me this picture which shows an official reloading kit. So produced for the army. You can see there on the front of the box, tir réduit, which is the French term for gallery loads, gallery cartridges. And so you see there you've got three main tools. Down on the bottom right we have a burden decapper. On the left we have a priming tool. So you can see there's a primer feeding tray in there. It's quite clever in that it swings the cartridge in. It's mounted on that peg you see there sticking out, and with the lever it swings it in, pushes it down on the primer, and then levers it out of the way again for the next one. And the top tool is for seating the ball and applying a slight crimp. So this was proper ammunition manufacture. Here in the workshop we'll do it the primitive way. So you grab your primed cartridge. You need primed case. You need something that's been fire formed previously, because obviously there's going to be no expansion whatsoever. And a sheet of nitrocellulose from your local magic store. Now you can fold this up however you like. I've seen it, some prescribed a strict number of folds. Here in the picture you just see it's folding to an M. I've also seen it simply rolled up, whatever takes your fancy, as long as it fits in the case. Alright, grab your ball. These, you can grease them. I usually just tumble them in Alox, leave them to dry, and then use them as such. Put that onto the mouth, and find a rubber mallet. Give it a sharp wrap, and there we go, ready for the range. So some of you are probably asking, what's the real benefit of these? Were they seriously used in any great capacity? Well, you'd be surprised, because here I have a facsimile copy of the 1918 manual for the Berthier 1892 and 1892 M16 carbines and musketoons, and there's an entire chapter dedicated to these. Agree? Yes. In here it states that if conditions dictate that you can't shoot at extended ranges, you can set up a range at 15 meters, set your sights at 200, and shoot, provide the troops with stimulating and beneficial targets. This includes static silhouette targets, for example. It would include swinging, pivoting, dueling types targets, swinging targets, and all this would be done manually. It explicitly states in here that care should be taken not to shoot your fellow man who's up at the front, maybe swinging targets from side to side for you. And there was even an accuracy standard set for when shooting at, I'm guessing, a normal bullseye. You would consider a good shot with these if you put all your shots in a 10 centimeter target, and you would consider an excellent shot if you put all your shots in a 5 centimeter target. Now I've said that, I'm guessing there's only one thing for it. Let's see if I'm a good shot or an excellent shot. You coming? Right, here we are in the barn. I've got a target, just a normal air pistol target. I've marked in grey the 5 centimeter and 10 centimeter rings, so you can keep a check on how I'm doing. And I've got here a big heavy gauge Diana pellet trap, which is rated for 2.2. I've got nice 2.5, 3mm steel deflectors in there, so that should, well, I know it handles those ball rounds just fine. Alright, let's see how I do. Okay, ready to go. Now, I found reference to these in the carbine manual, as I said, but it goes out of the Berthier long rifle and Lebel long rifle just fine too. But since I'm on a reasonably short range, I thought I'd stick with the carbine. Now I'm going to single load them because, well, that's what it says you should do. Frankly, the crimp isn't great on the ball, so it probably couldn't handle being shoved in and out of a charger or in the elevator of a Lebel. So single load it is. So there we are. My honour is intact, all well within the 5cm ring. So as you can see, it's plenty good enough for shooting at silhouettes or moving targets or whatever you want within the intended range. And for some of you are thinking, well, hang on, why is this just limited to Lebel? You know, you could apply this to anything, and you'd be right. I mean, just as an example, you could have one of these. In these. Or even one of these. And even these. So as you can see, it's perfectly suited for its intended purpose. You know, an imaginative officer could create some very nice scenarios within a building for targets, reactive shooting, snap shooting, you know, world's your oyster, and well, just simply to keep the men busy and away from the ladies of negotiable affection. I have anecdotal evidence that these were still in use in the 1940s. I have a report from someone whose grandfather remembers using these in Algeria at the end of the 1940s, simply to keep their shooting training, but ammunition was getting short in 8mm Lebel, so they could recycle cases with this reloading kit I showed you, and keep up to some degree their training exercises. And the French are not the only ones to have employed this. I know at least the Italians for their Carcanos used a similar system, if not the same. Capellozzi per tiro ridotto, it was called. Thank you, Cook, for confirming that from spam. And yeah, as you see, it works pretty much for any rifle cartridge as long as you have the right diameter ball. It just needs to be ever so slightly over bore size so that it gets a little bit of spin. But if you go too far, it'll just get stuck somewhere down the barrel. Trust me. Other than that, I did have a try with pistol cartridges. By the way, this all works, I reckon, up to about 8mm. After that, you just get too much friction, too much contact with the rifling, with the ball, or you have to put so much flash paper in that you may as well use a pinch of powder. Anyway, pistol cartridges, it worked quite well in the 30 Mauser, for example. 25 ACP, that worked as well. Revolver cartridges, for example, I tried the 8mm 1892 for the French revolver, and that was a waste of time. Basically, all the benefit you get from the boosts from the flash paper vents in the cylinder gap. So you may as well just use a Magnum primer or something to get the same effect. Yeah, so it's a good system. The only downside is that flash paper is relatively expensive. So it would be great if I could know a magician who could palm some off to me at a good rate. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, and we'll see you on our various platforms. And thank you also to our Patreons. We can't do without you. Bye.